Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Good evening, everyone. So we are going to continue our lecture series on Patisambhida Magga today. Last week I had to travel, so if I remember, yes, because of a ceremony of one of our teachers, so I was unable to do the class. I was in another monastery actually. So far we have done the courses that makes the Patisambhida purified. We discussed about five factors. If I recap what we have discussed so far, Patisambhida are the discriminating knowledges that by which one is capable of understanding the cause and effect very seriously and very thoroughly, even giving attention to small nitty-gritties or small differences among various causes and various effects. And a person with Patisambhida Ñāna is also capable of expressing these realities in a particular language according to the tradition, that is the Pali language. But anyway, one can also suggest that it is applicable to any language. Anyway, that will be a topic of controversy. And then a Patisambhida Ñāna, a person with Patisambhida Ñāna is capable of understanding about those three knowledges. The wisdom which understands the cause, wisdom which understands the effect, and the wisdom which understands the language usage, vocabulary about those cause and effects, and he will be able to convey them in a proper way. And also, because of that wisdom which analyzes about three of those wisdoms, he will be able to deliver them very precisely, and also help someone to and deliver in a way that one could understand cause and effect thoroughly, and also the grammar or whatever language usage behind those terminologies, behind those cause and effects. So therefore we have four types of Patisambhida Ñānas: Attha-patisambhidā, Dhamma-patisambhidā, Niruktti-patisambhidā, and Patibhāna-patisambhidā. And with these four types of knowledges, noble beings are capable of understanding the realities deeply and also expounding them to the listeners in a way that others could understand. So then when we move on to talk about when these Patisambhida Ñānas are attained, when the Patisambhida Ñānas are attained, and all the Patisambhida Ñānas are attained at the moment of supramundane path and fruition. So when someone eradicates the defilements, that is the moment someone attains the Patisambhida Ñānas, and it will be completed with the arising of the fruition, Phala Chitta. Then we talked about two types of Patisambhida Ñāna: Suddhika-patisambhidā and Pabheda-patisambhidā. So every noble being by nature, in virtue of his attainment, would possess the Suddhika-patisambhidā Ñānas, but they would come into variation only after they have mastered certain qualities. But of some variation can happen with the attainment of the noble path as well. So those are the ones we call who attain arahantship together with the Patisambhida Ñānas. Then there are two places where the Patisambhida Ñāna goes into variation. That is at the Sekka Bhumi. Sekka Bhumi is while someone is a lower noble, and at the Asekka Bhumi while someone has become an arahant. Then there are 5 reasons how the Patisambhida Ñānas could get purified in a being. So those 5 we discussed in detail. Adhigama, with the attainment of Arahanta Phala. Pariyatti, by studying the Buddha's teachings. Savana, listening to the Buddha's teachings. Paripuccha, expounding the commentaries or asking questions. Pubbhayoga, being a practitioner, a serious practitioner of the past. Then there are another 5 types of causes that could lead to the purification has been given in the text. However, some teachers have advocated, I have shared the previous handout, the last page, advocated 8 factors that are helpful for the attainment of Patisambhida Ñāna. So there are 8 factors. Out of them we have discussed few in the previous group, and now these are the other new 8 factors. Some of them has been discussed in the previous group. What are they? Pubbha Yoga. Pubbha Yoga is the meditation practice, being a meditator who has done the Gata Pacca Gata Vata. Then Bahu Satchang, being a learned person. Then Desa Bhasa, having learned some languages. Agamo, that is the studying the Buddha's words. Paripucca, having studied the commentaries or and meaning of at least one stanza, it means the commentary explanation. Then Adhigamo, slightly different. It includes all the 4 fruitions. In the previous Adhigama, in the previous list, it was only about Arahantship. Garu Nisayo, that is associating a well-learned teacher. And Mitta Sampatti, they too have, that is associating wise friends, having wise friends. So all these would help for the purification of Patisambhida Ñānas. Pubbha Yoga. Now in the previous 5 we had Pubbha Yoga. Now we can see the difference here. The previous 5 factors which would purify the Patisambhida Ñānas are Adhigamo. So I shall write them here. Adhigamo. So it's equal to here, but there's a slight difference here between the 2. Then we have Pariyatti, Savana, Paripucca, Pubbha Yoga. These are the 5. Pubbha Yoga are same factors. Then Pariyatti is studying the Buddha's teachings, which is equal to Agama. Paripucca, Pariyatti. Adhigama, here it refers to Arahatta Magga. Here Adhigama refers to all 4 types of Arahatta Pala actually, sorry. Here Adhigama refers to all 4 types of Pala. Sotapatti Pala, Sakadagami Pala, and Anagami Pala, and Arahatta Pala. Here it's only Arahatta Pala. Savana is listening to the Dhamma that is being preached. If you remember, one novice listened to his uncle monk's explanations and clarifications of Dhamma issues, and his Patisambhida Ñāna became purified. Paripucca was twofold, questioning and also explaining the commentaries. Here Paripucca means learning the commentaries. He means learning the commentaries. Savana is listening to the Dhamma, and you can include it in the Agama as well. Anyway, so there are some similarities and there are additional factors as well. So we shall learn about these 8 factors today. Pubbha Yoga is being a meditation practitioner who followed the Gata Pacca Gata Vata, which I explained in the previous lesson. A person who is well composed or very well focused on his practice would go to the village and with his meditation object without giving it up, and even he would make sure that each and every step he makes, he would be mindful, and he would not be forgetful about his meditation practice. In case if he happens to walk without mindfulness, some used to go back and walk from the place where he finally had the mindfulness. And so likewise they try to maintain that each and every posture that he or she is making would be in mindfulness. So that kind of deep practice is necessary in order to have attained the Patisambhida Ñānas in the last life, in the present life. So, so it means being a meditation practice in past lives as mentioned above. Bahu Satchang, having the skill in various sciences, Satta and arts, which are righteous and beneficial to the beings. So this is not talking about anything related to Dhamma. This is talking about learning, being a learned person in subjects such as science, maths, or medicine, or such as law and so forth, which are beneficial to the living beings. So not studying some things which doesn't make any sense. For example, there were some techniques that argue on saying that a crane is black, crane is bird who is white color and eat fish normally. A crane is not white, it is black, and so forth. There were some argumentative sciences or methods that beings used to study in those days, and those are even prohibited for monks to study. As well. So here Bahu Satcha means things that are beneficial to the world, such as mathematics, such as medicine, law, economics, and so forth. So out of which he can serve the people, especially Bodhisattva in his journey of fulfilling paramis used to fulfill these aspects, these sciences and skills. He mastered these skills in the paramis level, parami journey. So that's why he could reach the omniscience. So for the ones who are wishing to attain Patisambhida Ñānas, also should have mastered these skills in this past samsara. And they have to be righteous ones, which are beneficial, and arts and skills that would always develop certain faculties in our mind, in ourselves. Because if someone is especially doing maths, there's a lot of logical analysis is going on, and fast thinking comes in, and always he tries to be logical in his day-to-day lives. And if someone has studied logic, that would be also very helpful, how to argue and how to analyze the argument and so forth. And if someone has studied some philosophy and studied the other doctrines and analyzed them rather than believing them, but if someone has analyzed them and seen the defects and the capacities or the benefits of such doctrines, so in this way, somehow becoming learned in various subjects would eventually help the person to gain this special wisdom faculty that would discriminate the realities, causes and effects, and give a deeper understanding about the reality. What happens is, when we are doing these studies, we automatically develop certain capacities in wisdom, and also in order to study a deep subject, deep topic, we need to put a lot of effort, and those things will eventually help develop our mind in an overall sense. Because there is a nice story in which Buddha once preached to 5 people who came to listen to Dhamma from him. And those 5 people showed 5 different habits while they were listening, and Ananda was really surprised because one was sleeping on the floor, and one was looking at the sky, and one was shaking a branch, and one was just drawing on the earth and drawing lines on the earth, and the other one was attentively listening. And after they left, Venerable Ananda asked why these people who had got that greatest opportunity of meeting a Samma Sambuddha could not pay attention, and all 5 couldn't unanimously listen to the talk, and 5 of them showed 5 different characteristics. Then the Buddha said that is nothing to be surprised, because for all of them were showing their behaviors, because they have been living in different realms of species for a longer period. The commentary says 500 periods continuously. So somehow one was a monkey, and so he used to shake the branch, and he liked the tree. So while he was listening, then he'd shake the branches, and it didn't make any sense. It was nothing, but he was just doing it out of habit. And then one was a worm, earthworm. So he was drawing lines on the earth. The other one was a astrologer, and he was looking at the skies. And another one was a snake who slept on the earth, who slept on the ground. And finally, the other one had studied the Vedas. who attentively listen to the Dhamma talk, because in order to memorize the Vedas, you have to have mastered, you have to have the skill of listening very attentively. And Vedas are not taken as a doctrine that contains very fruitful information according to our tradition. And it contains, as we say, it contains a lot of creationist ideas and so forth. And it is a doctrine that is normally rejected in Buddhism. But studying that, the skills that he developed, especially the attentiveness, listening to his teacher, while listening to the Vedas, you have to listen to the teacher very carefully and try to grasp it into your mind and try to hold it in memory. So that capacity, he developed that capacity while learning these Vedas in past lives, and that helped him to listen to the Buddha attentively. And Buddha said that person attained Sotapatti fruition before he left. And one can easily argue about astrology as well, because in order to be a master astrology, one has to be well focused and study the stuff. But what the thing was, clearly his subject was appealing for him, because that habit appealed him to observe the skies, because he used to look at the skies and he liked that particular thing. So he was analyzing it, analyzing the stars. But had he not had the opportunity to listen to the star, look at the stars, my personal opinion is maybe he could have listened to the Dhamma very carefully and attained. But then one can ask the question, why didn't Buddha prevent that? Or did some miracle to prevent him from looking at the skies? Maybe he was not ready for that. Anyway, whatever it is, so studying astrology doesn't mean that it is bad for us, because it's a subject that you analyze things, and that would also increase your capacities. So there's nothing to say about astrology, because a person who has studied the Vedas also had developed the spiritual qualities, faculties that eventually helped him to understand the Buddha's teachings. So therefore, studying subjects other than Buddhism are helpful in the long term for anyone to attain the liberation, because by doing so, he develops these faculties within him that are helpful for the final liberation as well. Then Desabhasa. Desabhasa is the capacity to have spoken many languages in the past. Ability to speak in 100 languages, especially the fluency in the Magadhi language. So this is saying about 100 languages. Special attention to Pali, Magadhi. Special attention to Magadhi. Short T, yeah? Magadhi. So what happens is, when you are, this is not in one life actually, in the samsara, because no one can, I don't think anyone would be able, or ordinary being would be able to master 100 languages in one life, because it's a very complex thing. Having the ability to speak in few languages, you have to have a very complex mind. Should be a very smart mind as well. So this is throughout the samsara journey of fulfilling the paramis. So if someone has now the effects of a past life language skills, this shows that is transformed, is transferred to the future life. It doesn't mean that we can remember the past languages, but the skills that develop through that, and skills in linguistic skills would carry through the samsaric journey, because the mind is connected to each other. In the lineage of minds, these Upanishad forces would eventually go forward. So as a result, a person who has studied 100 languages in 100 lives, so in this case, it seems like if this has to be taken reliable, he has to be born in different eras or different countries in order to master the language. Because if someone is born in the same country for some time, and one can argue the language would eventually evolve, and you have to take two different, sometimes the language would be, it could be taken as two different dialects or forms of language when over the time. So somehow, and it seems like it is possible in the long journey of samsara, that one would be speaking few languages, 100 languages. And here it's not telling about just speaking the language. He seems like he has studied them very well, like at least some grammar and the fluency of using the language. It means the linguistic skills. That's what is expected here. And a special fluency in the Magadhi language, the language that the Buddhas will speak according to Theravada tradition. Here 100 languages means languages spoken in 100 kingdoms of 100 kings in ancient times. The word ancient time has been used, I don't know why it was used like that. Anyway, so 100 languages spoken by in 100 kingdoms. So it means in ancient days, different kingdoms had different languages. Learning 100 languages must be during the entire period of fulfilling paramis, as it seems not practical for a person to speak 100 languages in one life. I don't think it could be ever possible unless you have a very spiritually grown special qualities. For an ordinary person, I think there must be some limit of the number of languages that a person could master in one life. And this also develops that, this would be especially helpful for the Niruktti-patisambhidā, it seems, because if you have noticed that after having studied a language thoroughly, one language thoroughly, with grammar and the philosophy behind it, and when you are trying to study another language, the attempt would be much easier. The most difficult would be the grasping of the mother tongue, because at that time we are coming from no language to a language, and it's a very difficult process, but somehow all of us would get adapted as a natural process. But after that, when we are going to speak another language, we find it a little bit difficult. But after we have, because our mother tongue, we don't grasp them based on grammatical rules normally, because they are normally grasped with the practical usage. But after we have mastered the grammar of our language, then if we apply this to another language, especially when you have studied this second language, you start to see the linguistic similarities. And then when you move into another language, you will be searching for those patterns in the new language as well. Then you will see the similarities, dissimilarities, and it will be easier to grasp the meanings and the techniques of the language. And if someone has developed this skill in many lives, and that would be very useful in understanding the realities when they are being spoken. Because when a Buddha speaks about the Dhamma, it depends, a huge amount of understanding depends on our linguistic skills. That is very important, because even the slightest changes in the words, terminology is used, grammatical sentences, what type of tense was used, what type of mode was used, would eventually affect the meaning of the discourse. Therefore, the linguistic skills are very important, very vital in understanding the Dhamma, and that would eventually help his attainment. And then while he is delivering it back, the linguistic skills are very useful, because he should make sure that he is not conveying something wrong, even him not being aware of that. So Patisambhida Arahant, we normally assume that would not make such mistakes in their life. Therefore, the linguistic skills, development of linguistic skills seems to have a very huge connection with the Patisambhida Ñānas, and according to this list, having studied 100 languages in past lives would eventually assist our Patisambhida attainment. Then comes Agama, studying the Buddha's words at least a portion equivalent to the size of the Opamma Vagga, which is the Yamaka Vagga of Dhammapada. Opamma Vagga. This is just a name. Opamma comes from Upama. Upama, simile. Then it turns into Opamma. We can have various meanings for this. Something related to Upama, or some nature of Upama, we can have various meanings based on the suffix that is used. I am not aware of that. So then it is the Yamaka Vagga of Dhammapada. Yamaka Vagga, there are 25 Vaggas in Dhammapada. The first Vagga is called Yamaka Vagga. Yamaka Vagga. Because that Vagga contains 20 verses, if my memory is correct, 20 verses. Most of them comes in pairs. For the Manopubbangama Dhamma has 2 gathas which are of the same structure as with a slight difference. Then comes another 2 which are of the same nature. Only there are 2 gathas which we can see. It's difficult to trace their similarity. That is Nahi Verena Verani and then Akkochimang Avadiyam. But they are also related to enmity and anger. So we can see a similarity. But some of the other stanzas were not uttered at the same. They were not uttered at the same place. They were given at different locations, different places. The last two stanzas in the Yamaka Vagga were given on the same occasion. Maybe some other stanzas were also there, which were given at the same place for the same incident. So Yamaka Vagga are the gathas which were uttered in pairs, which were actually not uttered, which were organized in pairs. So having studied the Yamaka Vagga of Dhammapada, some teachers are of the opinion that Yamaka Vagga of Mula Pannasa of the Majjhima Nikaya is the Upama Vagga. So there is a Yamaka Vagga in Majjhima Nikaya as well. There is a Yamaka Vagga in Dhammapada, Yamaka Vagga in Majjhima Nikaya as well. So that is opinion of other teachers. In the current Pitaka revised in the 6th council, there is no Yamaka Vagga in the Mula Pannasa, but there is a Opama Vagga. So we have the Opama Vagga in the Mula Pannasa of the 6th council revised version. So maybe they were referring to that, right? So it is the third Vagga of Mula Pannasa Pali, and is constituted of 10 sutta, with 10 suttas. So it's middle length suttas. That is quite a reasonable amount of Dhamma. So maybe that makes sense, because Yamaka Vagga is a very small amount in Dhammapada, a very small portion. Most of us would be able to memorize it very easily and get the meaning roughly. Then Paripucca, having questioned the meaning of at least one stanza. So if someone has questioned the meanings of at least one stanza, that would be a requirement for the Patisambhida. But it's very obvious that one's knowledge that one gains through one stanza, the capacity it can be a bit limited. But another argument would be when you study and understand the meaning, deep meaning and analytical meaning of one gatha, that formula can be used to other gathas as well, especially if someone has studied it in terms of netti or in terms of Petakopadesa methods. Yes, those methods can be used to study other dhammas as well. Maybe that's what they were referring to. But this also signifies that when a gatha is given, the hidden meaning, the deep meaning should be known. So that is a significant feature of a Patisambhida person. He is not only seeing the outlook of the teachings, he is capable of going into the depths of the teaching. That is the unique feature of a person with higher wisdom. When the ordinary people gets just the outer look of the teachings, very, I would rather say shallow, that would say a shallow meaning, or just the superficial meaning, just the meaning from how the teaching appears to them. A person with analytical wisdom will be able to dive into the teachings and try to see a relationship between the other teachings with this. So that kind of analysis is required. If someone has studied at least one gatha in such depths, so it seems that is very useful. Maybe they were referring to the understanding the ordinary meaning of a gatha, but when you study various aspects in our Dhamma, especially that is taught in Netti, Petakopadesa and so forth, there are various ways that you can elaborate the meaning even of a single gatha. Then Adhigama, Adhigamo, Sotapatti Pala, Sakadagami Pala, Anagami Pala and Arahatta Pala. The four fruitions are helpful for the attainment, purification of the wisdom, and that makes sense, because after you have eradicated defilements, surely the wisdom grows up, and even for Ñāna-patisambhidas, these attainments are necessary. So obviously they make sense. Garu Nissaya, living under teachers who are well learned and with swift knowledge, quick knowledge. So if you are associating a teacher who has a deep knowledge in the teachings and who is very quick in answering or getting the meanings, that would eventually help you to clarify your doubts and to get better understandings about the teachings. So obviously Arahant or a noble being who is associating a learned teacher would eventually improve his wisdom, as what happened with that Samanera who was listening to his teacher uncle while he was clarifying the Dhamma issues. So in the same way, if the person is blessed to have a good teacher and to live under him, yes, obviously your wisdom would flourish and nourish in a greater way. So that would eventually help the person to attain Patisambhida Ñāna. Then Mitta Sampatti, having good friends who are well learned and with swift knowledge. A person having good friends who can question you and who can give you more hints and improvements, and also share the knowledge with you would eventually be a good support for the persons to improve his wisdom. Obviously, these things, having a good teacher, having studied the teachings, having eradicated the defilements, having questioned the nature of questioning the teachings, asking for more elaborative explanations, and having studied various languages, having studied other doctrines, and also having meditated, they are always supportive for the purification of the wisdom. In another place, we find that even the teaching, the preaching, the person, later we will find this in some place in the Patisambhida Magga or in Nirdesapali, if I remember, when you preach the Dhamma, to more frequently preach the Dhamma, that would also increase the Patisambhida Ñāna. A person who is preaching the Dhamma, about two Arahants, one who is preaching and one who is preaching less, the one who is preaching, his wisdom would increase more. Patisambhida Ñānas would enhance over the other person. And that also makes sense, because Paripucca in one sense is explaining the commentaries. So when you are preaching Dhamma means you are elaborating the Buddha's teachings, because we know what kind of transformation happens in us when we keep on teaching the Dhammas, because after a good session of teaching, the teacher's knowledge improves better than anyone in the class, because he will have a better picture. He will be seeing more and more depths in the same subject that he will be teaching. When he has mastered the teaching or done the teachings for many years, the same subject, the same topic, he will have more and more deep understanding. So that's why it's mentioned in the commentaries, that not in the commentaries, like the Mula itself, that the Patisambhida Ñāna of an Arahant who preaches enhances over someone who doesn't preach. Someone who doesn't preach. And then at the same time, one who is associated, and also one who does vipassana meditation frequently, his wisdom increases. This method is found in Nirdesapali, that how the wisdom increases even among the Arahants and even among the ones who have obtained Patisambhida Ñāna. So this can be increased, the level can be increased and developed into higher stages. So these are the things that, so I will be concluding the Patisambhida Ñānas with this, and next week I am going to start the Suttame Ñāna and start explaining them step by step. I have already made the handouts for some Ñānas, and I will just correct the grammar and share with you all, and we will be most probably we will be able to discuss few Ñānas. In the beginning we will be able to discuss only one Ñāna at a day, because there's some kind of some sort of details given. We are not going into the Nirdesa yet. We are going to just to explain the terminologies and give the commentarial explanation given in the Uddesa. That means the short explanation. So we will be able to go through all the 73. Then we will dive into the real essence of each Ñāna, in which I will be discussing in Suttame Ñāna in length all the terminologies described in the Patisambhida Magga. That will be very useful if you can grasp the ideas and at least know some basic terminologies. That would be really helpful when you are studying the Dhamma in other places as well. So, so that would be the lecture. I will conclude it. I think we have done. There are some few points that I would like to discuss. I will take them in the Patisambhida Ñāna lessons, because some issues like in a sub-commentary it is mentioned that Abhiñāna are relevant for Patisambhida Ñānas, and then Venerable Ananda didn't possess Abhiñānas while he was having Ñānas, and those some issues need to be discussed, and some other information can be given. But if I keep on doing this in the beginning stage, I feel like we will be lagging in the Patisambhida Ñāna section, because it will come again in the future lessons. So that would be the lesson for introduction for the Patisambhida Ñānas, and I hope we had a good introduction, overall introduction, and then we'll move on to the Suttame Ñāna from next week. So I conclude the lecture. May this merit of discussing Dhamma help us to attain our final liberations, and also for the longevity of the Buddha Sasana. Buddha Sasanang Chirantiktatu, Buddha Sasanang Chirantiktatu, Buddha Sasanang Chirantiktatu, sadhu sadhu.